And good evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Marketing and Events Committee. We've got the first item is to receive any apologies for absence. Has anybody got any apologies?
Yeah, I've got apologies from Councillor Clark, Councillor White, and Councillor Houston.
Thank you very much. The next item.
Sorry, Chair, is one or two more. Councillor Morrissey.
I will be perfectly honest. We're not sure which committees we're on, so apologies for Councillor Morrissey.
I'll share with you the list.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is to note declarations of members' interests. Does anyone have any interest that need to declare in any of the items on tonight's agenda? No. Item number 3 is to consider the minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of September 2022. Those are attached. Is everybody happy? I wasn't at the meeting, so we can have a proposal and a seconder. Please.
I'll move.
Thank you. And the seconder? Thank you. All those in favour? Yeah, thank you very much. Item number 4 is public participation. There's no members of the public present, and the clerk's indicating that we haven't received any questions either. So item number 5 is to note to consider the Christmas light switch on event schedule and budget, which is attached at page 7.
So since I pulled the report together, there's been a few changes. So do you want me to go through the activity? So the Christmas light switch on will take place on Saturday, 26th of November, between 11 AM and 6:30 PM. We've requested free car parking in the Crewe Town Centre, and that's now been agreed by Cheshire East Council, and that will take place from 10 AM on the day of the event. On the 26th and 27th of November, Market Hall are also organising a Christmas market, which will take place over on Market Square, in the shed area, and also within Market Hall itself. I think they're expecting a minimum of 40 stalls over the weekend. So our activity will be split over 3 sites. So Crewe Library will be hosting a Christmas letter writing workshop by Creative Crewe. Over in Christchurch Courtyard, there will be a Christmas post office, so we're going to uplight it all, bring in lots of props, etc. to create a Christmas post office. So young people can either bring their letters with them from home, or they can attend the letter writing workshop and then go and post the letter at the post office. And we'll have elves over at the post office from 10 AM and 5 PM, meeting and greeting families. The main stage will be located in front of the municipal building on Earl Street, with audiences standing on Memorial Square. So we're planning a community takeover on the main stage in the day. So from 12 o'clock, we're going to have Crewe Brass, the Cheshire Pop Choir, Love Crew are going to do a service, but they're also going to have a nativity trail across the town as well once the service is finished. And the Lyceum Choir will perform before the community element finishes at 4. We're finishing it at 4 because there's a wedding in municipal, so we don't want to disturb them with noise. So the main stage will start again at 5 PM for the Christmas light switch on. We've got a Christmas carol sing along with St Thomas More School. We're going to have some representatives from Crewe Alexander Ladies football team, and they are going to participate hopefully in a challenge with our mayor, and it's just going to be a quiz challenge.
A quiz challenge.
A quiz, yeah, 3 questions each.
If a ball hit men, she'd pass out.
Anthony.
Old see with some of those giant goalkeeper clubs on diving size.
And then we've got a local singer-songwriter, Ollie, who's going to perform a mix of his own music and also Christmas songs. And then that will lead us into the traditional Christmas countdown at 6:20 with the lights coming on and the event finishing around 6:25.
Are we invited to the wedding?
You could be.
Well, we are, Dennis, but unfortunately we've got a note about you.
Is that D sharp?
So that's Christmas light switch on. One of the points I wanted to raise was, we've struggled to find a safe space for a firework finale. There's no dropout zone within the town centre. So what we are going to do is we are going to have a look at stage pyro, fake snow, that sort of thing, lighting up the municipal when the lights come on. So there is a bit of a boost to the Christmas lights coming on, but it won't be the usual firework finale. So we can't find anywhere safe to do that.
Just on that point, can I just ask, obviously, given that we've had fireworks previously, what has changed from previous times when we've had fireworks to now? Because I know there's been a bit of...
From the research I've done and the conversations I've had, I think we were informed a couple of years ago that it wasn't safe to fire fireworks in the town centre without a dropout zone. I think previously they explored using Cumberland Stadium
Right.
to fire fireworks out, but they couldn't get permission, and when I've asked again this year, we didn't get permission again. Every space that would be okay to fire off the fireworks, there was no dropout zone, so we look like behind this building, but then the petrol station is in the way, which isn't a great combination.
It might be a big bang.
It won't be great, it puts on the map. The budget that's in front of us, I've removed, we need to remove the firework display up here. Like I think it was 3,000.
3,890.
Yeah, so I've replaced that with pyro, and we've reduced the budget to 1,200. If we can get it under that, would be fab. And that brings the Christmas light total down to the 20,000 budget. So would be within budget about doing that. I don't know if we want to have a quick look down at the budget breakdown.
Can I ask about the PH Productions Christchurch infrastructure, £4,000?
Yeah. So that would be a mix of, we'll have 30 uplighters, we'll have sound, we'll have props, like post boxes. We're going to basically turn it so it looks like you're walking into a big Christmas post office.
Okay.
There was obviously the briefing that we had last week where we did briefly touch on this. I'm happy with all the costs that are there. The one thing that I just wanted to raise is that we're being charged £525 by Cheshire East for room hire. It's small in the grand scheme of things, but also massive for what it is. I appreciate that they hold the keys and such. That is an outrageous amount for using a room for a day, which is benefiting Crewe residents, and it's a building for Crewe residents. What I would ask is that if there's any way of writing or anything like that, and just saying, come on, a bit, it would be appreciated, because that is a bit laughable.
If I may, Chair, I entirely agree with you. It's quite a large amount of money for quite a small level of service, considering the building will be open anyway. It's not going to be that many staffing costs. There is a need for a behind the stage sort of area where people who are working, for example, can stay out of the rain when they need to and have a bit of a break. But to charge that much doesn't seem representative of the usage. And I'm more than happy to make that representation to the various officers associated with that. I would ask that you manage your expectations of the response I will get.
No, I do understand. It frustrates me that those sorts of costs are added when actually we're trying to build partnerships with Cheshire East, and we're doing something that benefits the community. For them, another authority to be charging that sort of rate. I appreciate there would be a charge to cover staffing costs, but I would expect it to be half of that. Councillor Street Francis?
Do we know if any of the other areas are having something like this? Because it would be nice to know how much they're being charged, if they are. Congleton and Macclesfield, Sandbach. It'd be nice to see how much they're being charged for their route hire. Or is it just another case of crew being made to pay? I'm only asking the question. I don't expect an answer now, but
Yeah.
maybe we could find out.
Pete, did you have an answer?
I have experience of having to pay similar rates elsewhere,
You do?
and I'm more than happy to make the inquiry at another town events that will be going on in Cheshire East and see what they're paying for an equivalent service.
Thank you.
Councillor Edwards?
Is there an alternative room, in case, for instance, this room?
We've had around the area, we need the room as well for groups turning up, leaving things, changing, etc. So although we could use this room, it would be quite logistical.
It'd be operationally very difficult to walk backwards and forwards. So for example, there'll be people who'll be changed into costumes and things like that. So there's got to be an area, one, that's secure for their gear to sit still, and two, that's appropriate for someone to get changed in. And equally, if we have to have very limited stuff, we already have walking backwards and forwards to manage that here, that would be quite operationally difficult, I think, on what will be quite a challenging day, particularly depending on the weather.
Sorry, Chair. It's absolutely the only place really that we can go to. And maybe this is the reason why we're being charged so much, because they know they've got us over a barrel. All I'm saying is supposed to be the time of seeing a goodwill in it, and we're paying for the goodwill, in my opinion. I just.
No, I do completely agree. I think there's, given that we have to be sensitive towards certain other conversations that have been had recently with Cheshire, we don't want to burn bridges over anything else, and not burn bridges, that's the wrong turn of phrase, but we don't want to cause problems. We want to try and build positive relationships, but it is, I think there's got to be a bit of give and take with some of these things. Does anybody else have any questions on the budget or the proposal? Councillor Rhodes?
On the PH Productions at the bottom it says film. £600.
The £600 is for budget towards the Christmas film. Like the Christmas film that we did last year.
Alright, so that's not associated with the diner.
And I'd just like to say I still haven't been paid for that one.
No, we just added it into the infrastructure costs, but I probably should have made it more clear.
My other comment would be we've got some very well paid out.
Well, welcome volunteer elves if you know of anyone.
Hazel? Me, you and Nan, that's three of us.
I'll offer, yes.
Unless anybody's got any further questions, then can we please have approval of a proposal and seconder for the programming of the Christmas light switch on, the budget for the light switch on, and that we agree to sourcing an alternative for the firework finale. Have a proposal and seconder for those, please.
Yeah, I'll move it.
Yeah, thank you. And a seconder. Thank you. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is to consider the draft committee budget as it informs the budget setting for 23-24 financial year.
Okay, so since we last met, I have updated the draft budget that I presented. Do you want me to go down, go through a breakthrough each of the segments? If we start with the earmarked reserves that we've had this year, but we're carrying over. So we've allocated £39,000 for the Monster Trail. And to give you a very brief update on that, I have spoken to the arts organisation that deliver the Monster Trail, and I've requested that we would have it in October half term, either in 23 or 24. So they're going back to Manchester a bit to have a conversation about the clause that's in their contract, and we're going to meet at the start of December to have a conversation to see if we can move it forward. We've put in earmark reserve the community fund match funding, which would be for the Crewe Community Awards. We just haven't had the time or resources to deliver them before April, but we're going to move them into September, which gives us more time to develop the community awards and to get nominations, etc. And we've also on the earmark reserve from the Queen's Jubilee, there's still £11,000 within that budget. So I've had a conversation with Queen's Park because they've approached me about a coronation event in the park. So we provisionally allocated the £11,000 from the Jubilee Fund to a coronation event in May. So I'm not sure what you guys think of your thoughts on that.
Can I just check?
Oh no, that's just separate. This is just a breakdown.
Oh, that's good. Sorry, just trying to follow the same thing. So, yeah, any questions or comments on the coronation fund?
The coronation event, assuming we're talking about King George's coronation.
Yeah.
Isn't it over the year? It's coronation.
They set a date of the 6th of May.
That's right.
So Queen's Park got in touch, but we've not heard anything else about, they've not released any more information really about events.
I was just thinking, what from the government point of view, the government said they have to change the date and make it in a big.
Okay.
I mean, it could just be speculation in the press, but
Yeah.
I think it's one of those events that we should certainly be part of. I mean, it doesn't happen every day that we have a coronation. So yeah, and knowing Queen's Park, and the people in Queen's Park, they will make it, they will make a damn good job of it, no question about it. And as George has referenced there before, it's nice to have links with other people. I'm going to put this in the nicest way I can. This will be a change from the normal thing, because normally when I attend these meetings, it's a case of, well, we want to have it in the town centre
Yeah.
to promote the town centre. I've argued before, or there's the question before, that we should move things to Queen's Park because of the, but this particular venue would be ideal for the coronation. The town centre would be big enough for the coronation, it wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
Whereas Queen's Park, I think, would be. So yeah, I'm fully in agreement. It was just a question of the dates. Obviously, that's got to do with those obvious one. I mean, that's put them down in London. That's, yeah, I think it's a good idea. It should be involved, definitely. Did they give you any sort of figures, Rachel, or?
No, I've had a brief conversation and I think we're coming from the same place idea-wise. If we can do it and it's in the budget, we're looking at maybe a big screen for the coronation and encourage people to bring a picnic with some maybe walkabout activity and music. But I think we need to start costing it out and having a look
Exactly what it's going to
at
cost.
what it will cost. And but we put it on the earmark reserve because if we did want to screen, they're going to go pretty quickly. So I think we need to.
I remember when we were going to do something on the town square. Was it to do with the British Legions or some anniversary or something?
Yeah.
And you couldn't get a piper or a drummer or anything. I forget what it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd much rather you were change the date, but I think you're absolutely right.
I don't think we can change the date of coronation. We can ask them.
Well, I mean, if you want, I did not give Joe's a ring. I mean,
We know you've got influence, Tom.
I certainly think that earmarking it is a good idea. Up to £11,000, obviously we'll need to see a much greater breakdown of costs, and also be mindful of the changing financial perspectives and whether people will see it as I'm not saying we should support it at all, but whether, I'm trying to think of that was, the economic climate is very fluid at the minute, and people may not be happy if we're spending £11,000 on what they see as a picnic, when actually there may be other pressing concerns at the time. So I think earmark it, but obviously, before any sort of decisions are made, we need to see further details.
If I may, Chair, if we're gonna do something, is it May or June? No, it's definitely May.
Yeah.
Okay. If we're gonna decide to do something, my opinion, we should decide now. Because if we wait until next year, we ain't gonna get anything that we want. Because everything's gonna be booked up everywhere. Because people are starting to book things now for the coronation. So we've got to decide whether or not we decide if we're gonna do anything, and if we are, we're gonna have to decide, in my opinion, we're gonna have to decide now, not maybe tonight, but we're gonna have to decide in the very near future, otherwise we won't get anything. That's my opinion.
Such as a TV, you mean?
Well, anything, if you wanna, I don't know, if say you wanted a group, they're gonna be booked up now for the coronation.
Yeah.
You know, if you want pipers, if you want court players, what they call bugle players, buglers, that's it, I'll get there in the end. If you want buglers, they're gonna be booked up, and the chances of you getting one, if you want one, something like that, is gonna be very slim, if you get one at all. If we wait, it's only my opinion, but I think that if we wanna do anything, we should decide now what we wanna do, and if we wanna do anything, and what we wanna do.
We've got the town clerk and then Councillor Edwards.
If, Councillor Strange-Francis makes a very strong point, if members are minded they want to consider marking the coronation of the King in May, then perhaps you might direct officers to come back with a proposed schedule for the event at the next meeting, which is the 10th of January, so not very long away, for ratification or scrutiny and ratification of that. So reservations could be made in that time with the positive intent to carry them forward, but then members could have the opportunity to scrutinise them prior to final confirmation, aiming for the 10th of January is that date, which is the next meeting of this committee, which is altered by the
The big thing now, Chair, is that 70 years ago when we had the last coronation, and things have changed just a little bit in that time. I don't know, are we going to decide to put a big TV up, whatever they call, you know, I don't know what they're called, but a screen, thank you very much. Are we going to put a big screen up so everyone can see? I'm sure there are, or maybe not, but I don't know how many people in crew won't be able to see it. I don't know, but I know there's a lot of people in crew that are struggling, and I would hate for them to miss out for the fact that we could put a screen up. Yeah, I don't know how much they cost, they've got a clue. But if we're going to do something like that, as I said, I know what the clerk's saying, and I tend to agree with him in one way, but I think January would be too late. If we're going to do something like that, we need to book it, and I really mean, we need to book it now. So I maybe if we can have a go on.
You can have more meetings, that's absolutely fine. I would challenge the available capacity within the team to organise this, because at the minute Rachel's preparing for a Christmas light switch on and doing all the background facilitation of the compliance paperwork for every other event, for example, Remembrance and Tree of Light, and then also working towards Lumen. I would challenge that there's enough time between now and, let's say, December, where you can ask Rachel to fit in anything else in that time.
Dennis, I have actually asked our production guy from Page Productions just to have a look at availability for screens and send us some costs and some details. So he's already working on that, just because I know that it's time sensitive. So we can have a look at that, and we can have a look at the costings, and then we could potentially provisionally book something and then confirm it after the 10th of January once you guys have had the chance to do it.
I didn't know you could read minds.
Yeah, so I'm already on it, Dennis. I was just interested to see what the cost would be, because infrastructure has naturally gone up in price anyway at the moment. So if they were going to put it up even more for an event like that, so.
Councillor Edwards, you want to comment?
Oh, nothing really, just I guess it is possible, but to book something for an event rather than a fixed date, I guess it's obviously not a problem. Because obviously, as mentioned, the date hasn't been fixed.
No, the date's fixed.
The date's fixed,
Like,
yeah.
the date's put about changing.
Okay.
There's concern, I believe, because the local elections are due 2 days beforehand, and therefore counting the votes were expected to be the same day as the due.
I've checked on that one with various aspects of the governance tiers on that one. So the local elections aren't on wholesale nationally, they are a proportion of national representation. And the expectation would still be to meet the schedule of counting, although that might slip into the Monday. And there's no intention at this time to reappoint those local elections. So the date, as far as I know, is fixed.
Councillor Dunlop?
Just on the economic, obviously you're not old enough to have been there. But when we last had a coronation in this country, the economic situation was dire. Just quite in the world, it could be before. So I don't think, I mean, I get your point. You're spending the town's money and all that. I just really do not see it being a problem. I think we get more kickback from the people of the town who didn't do anything than if we did. The cost may be a debatable point, but the actual doing of it from a cost point of view, I think we get more complaints that we didn't do something than if we did. Personally, I think it's so important, an event that most people only see once in their lifetime. Unfortunately, I've seen it too. I can't remember very much about the first one, obviously, but I was around at the time. And I just cannot see this company letting it go. I really can't. And I just think we should be, as a town, we should be up there for the people of this town to make sure they get the best that we can provide for our event.
Yeah.
Councillor Palace, you're up to him.
Yeah, I very much think as you do, Councillor, possibly that the people in the town may be struggling. I think they are at the moment. And I think we do quite a lot to help them as it is. And I think if they can have something free that they can go to, then it's an event for them. So it's an extra event, and if it doesn't cost much more than the £11,000 for them to come and see the coronation, and as you say, people remember it now. I'm not quite. I was born in 55, so I'm not quite able to remember it, but I know people do remember it years to come.
You have a good memory if you could.
And a picnic is not bad, because you know you can take a picnic and save. But yeah, I think we have got to look carefully at costs with people struggling at that moment. So, but yeah, and I think having it in the park is a good idea, because people want us to use the park more.
£11,000. Sorry, that's not going to be the top, is it? I mean, you said £11,000, which is written down here.
Yeah.
What is that? I'm sorry to go on about it, but what does that entail?
So that's what our budget would be. I need to speak to the Friends of Queen's Park. There is potential. I'll need to have this conversation with Sheila and friends, that if they would allow it, I could potentially write a funding bid to be submitted in their name for the event. So for the Jubilee, there was funding through the National Lottery for community groups to draw down money to deliver events. So I think it's looking out for opportunities like that to work together. And obviously see if we can maybe get some sponsorship, that sort of thing. But I think it's just coming up with some ideas, costing them out, and just seeing what's realistic moving forwards.
Councillor Rhodes?
I'm not convinced about a big screen. I'm not convinced. I think, you know, yeah, we need an event, but I'm not convinced about a big screen showing the coronation. I just think most people sit at home watching on the television. if they want to watch it. So, no, I'm not convinced about big screen. But that's my personal opinion. I think we should do something to celebrate the coronation, but I'm not convinced that we should be expending money on a big screen. Particularly if it's going to be at a maximum cost, because they're being rented out to everybody else.
Can I, I'm sorry,
The thing is, Rachel, sorry, what, to take what Jill said, I mean, the actual event, the coronation itself, will take place in the morning, in the morning,
Yeah, it
isn't it?
is.
So there's nothing to stop people from staying at home if they want to watch it, because obviously more television. So there's nothing to stop us from creating, because mainly the park will be for kids.
Yeah.
So kids are, I know, they might get sacked from the television, so we put that on paper. But there's no reason why you can't work on an event to celebrate the coronation, but not necessarily show it on a, as Jill says, on a big screen.
No, that's a fair point. We could maybe look at doing a mid-afternoon to early evening celebration event. So, do you want me to cast, would that be preferable to cast that?
And I know it's very difficult giving out food, post-COVID, and I know there's all sorts of issues, but, you know, those families that are struggling to sort of have a party for the coronation, you know, and they're struggling for food, maybe some sort of, I don't know the health and safety regulations around food, but, you know, when we had the last coronation, we had street parties, didn't we?
the other thing that's gone down very well this summer is obviously rather than doing something as a big celebration in Queen's Park, it's actually using the smaller pocket parks. I think there's several different options, and so to try and move this conversation forward, we can ask Rachel if you have a chance to prepare some of those options with costings to bring to us at January's meeting. That's probably the best way of moving forward with this. So a proposal for showing a big screen event at Queen's Park, a proposal for an afternoon celebration, and then something more perhaps smaller and dotted around the community or something. If there's capacity to do that, I think that's potentially the best way of trying to find a resolution. Does that sound like a proposal?
Yeah, I'd support that.
Yeah, thank you. All those in favour of that being proposed to take it forward? Thank you very much. I forgot to add, sorry, just on going back to the last agenda item, can we please have a note of thanks to Rachel for all the Christmas scheduling work? I know it's not been easy to ask again, and there's an awful lot of work goes into it. So can that please be minuted as well as a thanks from the committee? Moving on to the next slide. Sorry, we're still discussing item 6, sorry.
Yeah,
We've got something that's so drawn out with that.
Yeah, so going back to the budget, so the community events and summer programme, we've allocated £49,000. So that would include £20,000 allocated to Operation Summer, and £2,000 to Heritage Open Days, £2,000 to International Women's Day, £10,000 to Knife Angel / Operation Easter programming, and £15,000 to bring a monthly artisan market to Crewe. So that would be 10 markets across the year, say from March next year onwards. Has anyone got any questions for that one?
So I just had one question on the Knife Angel. Is that not falling within this financial year?
No, it's April.
Right, okay. That's right. I know we've had discussions about it already. I just didn't know where it was falling for budgeting.
I'll bring an update on the Knife Angel to the 8th of January meeting. So that's the community events. We've allocated event match fund £10,000, and that would be to work with the Friends of Queen's Park to look at how we can work together on a funding application to draw down money for a programme of events within Queen's Park. Is everybody okay?
Yeah, Councillor Rose.
Can I just say that Queen's Park is owned by Cheshire East? And it's managed by Cheshire East, and I appreciate that the Friends of Queen's Park work really hard, but, we seem to be doing all the work for this.
Well, one idea that I had is Cheshire East commissioned a crowdfunding platform called Space Hive, through which they distribute their community grants. And there's potential for doing things on Cheshire East land. Is actually could we look to linking with that, so then access their match funding that might be available for community programming. That means that it's like an equal contribution that way, between us putting on an event for community residents, but also Cheshire East actually funding activity on their own land as well.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and I just think that all the other, and I mean, they own all the other parks as well. But it's, to me, it's about spreading the money we've got as a town council around the town, rather than lumping it all in one park, which for some people in the town, in their terms, is quite a way. There'll be people that live in Crewe East and Crewe North who've never been to Queen's Park, because they never walked that far, or they haven't got the transport to go there. So, you know, I appreciate what you're saying, but I think we need to think about their treasuries to start putting some money in as well.
We could extend the programme to include the other parks as well, so if we were successful, we could do activity across the parks. But I can pick the conversation up with Cheshire East and the cultural strategy group as well.
Thank you.
Coming in on, sorry, on something George just said, maybe we could get buses or coaches, get someone to sponsor them, to get people from around the areas where you were saying, to bus them into Queen's Park. If we could get someone to sponsor it, to pay for it, so it doesn't cost us anything as such. I don't know whether that's an idea that we could have a go at.
Yeah, we can look at costing it out as part of the application.
There is a direct bus from Sydney to Queen's Park.
There is.
I use it regularly.
Which one?
Number 8
Really?
stops at the bus station, but yeah,
Yeah, so it doesn't go to the Queen's Park, does
it
it?
goes to Queen's Park.
It stops,
It does.
stops on
Back
the front.
entrance.
Eh?
Stops down the opposite.
Sorry?
Stops down right the opposite.
Yeah. Goes to Western Green afterwards. Yeah. We need to publicise that more so that the people in Crews.
Well, I didn't know that. No, off the news, number 8. Must have been asleep at the time.
Okay, so moving on to the Christmas programme budget, Lumen, we've allocated £60,000, which is the same as this year. Christmas infrastructure is set at £60,000. Christmas activities, we've increased the budget by £5,000 from the show, so that's £25,000. And that's purely with the infrastructure costs going up. It was quite a struggle to get it in budget this year. And there's £10,000 allocated for the Christmas light sinking fund. So that's the Christmas programme section. Has anybody got any questions?
I had a question around you talked about the Christmas activities being obviously raising that to account for inflation. Will we not suffer the same sorts of issues with Lumen, the Christmas infrastructure, as in the Christmas lights, if we're keeping it at £60,000 and inflation's at 10%, are we not then going to be cost cutting by 10% in some way?
Yeah, so with Lumen, when I brought the initial proposal at the last meeting, I'd put that up to 70,000, I think, but I think the consensus around the room was to keep it at 60. But there is potential to submit a funding application for Lumen, whereas Christmas, a lot of funders won't cover religious festivals, which Christmas goes into. So looking at the budget, it was preferable to add additional budget onto Christmas, keep Lumen the same as this year, but look at how we can draw down funding for Lumen. And I think also looking at how we bring in sponsorship for both events next year as well.
Councillor Rose.
I think, I mean, by May next year, we've got a new council, won't we? But I think we need to look at whether, and really analyse whether Lumen is really what we want to do. I mean, by all means, we're going to need a block of funding, but whether Lumen is actually what we want to do, or whether we want to explore other ideas. I would not suggest that now, but going forward after May, because we have had some spectacular Lumen activities, but because of COVID, they have not matched.
I think it's an important thing is that we don't, we've always got a clear brand there, but also we're working with groups like the Creative Champions to try and have more of a community input into these events, and so to be led by those ideas. And I know that one of the things we're discussing is the Lads Up the North group, how we can kind of team up with those other organisations again to make the best of what is an established group that can draw in external funding, whilst also looking to keep it fresh, to keep it relevant, to keep improving it. So yeah, I fully appreciate what you're saying. I think it's that thing of keeping it as a working thing, not just feeling that, oh, we've done it for the past 5 years, so we've got to do it for 6, 7, 8.
How long's Lumen on for? I can't remember.
So when we have it in February, it'll be for 2 nights. That's normally the average with light nights. It's normally 1 night or 2 nights. We had it for 16 nights last year because of COVID and spreading out the footfall, but that really did spread the budget too thin. And it was a lot of capacity going into 16 nights of events. So I think 1 or 2 nights would be the preference.
And it's £60,000 for 2 nights.
Yeah.
It was interesting. Just last year, Rachel, Tom, myself, and a couple of people went to the Durham Lights Festival, which is, again, that's a 2-night festival, costs an awful lot of money, more than our budget is, but it is absolutely spectacular. And it isn't just a case of, whereas Lumen last year, because of COVID and other restrictions, it was a good event spread over a long period, so you didn't get that magnificent sort of view. Actually, by allocating the budget to a smaller event, you get better, you get a bigger hit, I suppose, off that, as opposed to a smaller hit spread longer. So I agree with the fact that we should be restricting it this time, now that there are fewer restrictions in place. Well, there's no restrictions in place. I think it's the way that you look at how you deliver that sort of event. Yeah, Councillor Farris.
Yeah, at £30,000 for an evening, it needs to be quite spectacular for a small town, really, as we are. So I'm in agreement with Councillor Rhodes that we need to look at this. We need to see how much footfall it brings into the town, and not just the footfall, how it gets crew noticed, and if we get people from other towns coming. And it will be a test, really, in February to see what does happen. So
I suppose the other alternative is that we don't necessarily name. I suppose I'll take advice off Rachel and Town Clerk, but that we don't name that line as Lumen, but we rather name it as an event for spring 2024. I don't know quite how that works, Clark, but
name whatever you want.
That way we don't bind the future council, whatever may come, whoever that may be. We've still got budget there to run spectacular events, but we're not saying it has to be the Lumen brand.
If we're talking about an event in the latter stages of winter 2024, which is what we're talking about, or early stages of spring, as you mentioned, you may want to change that line for 2023-24 to strategic event. Keep it in a singular form, because there's still that intention to throw something spectacular out for residents and businesses. But it does allow you the scope to deliver a Lumen, or to deliver something that you might come to appreciate in a different way.
Yeah. Thank you for that advice. I'd like to propose that then, if we change that budget naming to strategic event, and before any decisions are made, we take on board the feedback and evaluation that we get from the event in February 2023, ready for the new council from May 2023 to be able to make that decision. I propose that. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, and all those in favour? Thank you, that's carried.
Okay.
Thank you.
And that takes us on to the marketing and events projects, where we've just got one line, which is £15,000, and that would be used towards the development of 3 large-scale funding applications. So I've identified 3 funding applications. So HS2 application to look at bringing events into the town centre. You can bid up to £250,000 for events, but you have to evidence how they're sustainable. So that potentially could be looking at a mix of things. So from things like it could be an ice rink at Christmas to bring in for local people and also visitors. It could be developing a crew half marathon. It could be looking at more placemaking events like the tour series. But we would need to build a business partnership and have businesses around the table, so they could help support the development of it, but also the funding towards it to make it sustainable. So that would be the first application. The next application would be an Arts Council England application. We are looking at working with partners, Crewe Library, the Lyceum and Cheshire East Council to look at a large strategic funding bid over a 3-year period. So I think included in that would be looking at Lumen, Operation Summer, maybe looking at how we look for another spring festival. To replace Traction that was, or to carry Traction forward. And there's opportunities there as well to do smaller pop-up activity as well if we can get the funding. So we've established a cultural strategy group that meets every fortnight, and that's what as a partners, that's what we're building up to with Arts Council England. And the third is a National Lottery Community Fund application, and that would be for Operation Summer. So I've had some of the evaluation back, and the Operation Summer programme has been a huge success. We've had a lot of positive feedback, but some of the points were raised were to have more activity within communities. So look at how we can use the pocket parks, how we can take things into communities, but also a lot of people suggested linking in with holiday hunger as well. So I think there's a conversation with the National Lottery Community Fund to see how we can develop that moving forward.
I'm sorry, the £15,000 is spent on applications?
Yeah, so that would help. So that would be additional support for writing applications, because it's a huge amount of work, and also costing out certain bits of activity. It is a lot of money, but I think even if we were successful in one of the applications, it would be a good investment.
And the 29,000 was spent?
No, the 29,000, there's still the majority of it sitting in the budget. Myself and Vicky, the heritage officer, were looking at the HLF application. We pulled together an outline of quite an ambitious project, but we need to have a conversation with the Heritage Lottery Fund, because as an organisation, we don't have a huge track record with the Heritage Lottery Fund, so we need to see if we need to put smaller applications in, or if we can use that 29k as match funded for a 2 or 3 year project. So that's where we are at the moment. So hopefully by the next meeting on the 10th of January, we'll be able to share more information on that.
Has anyone else got any questions, Councillor Podders?
Not a question as such, just that I went to the Operation Summit and it was fantastic. It was really good. And the fact that there was a leaflet telling you where you could go. I would like that for the warm places, for the events for people throughout the year as well. We need to build on that. It was a success. So, but I especially like the idea of getting out into the community, maybe with the police as well, because they're doing different activities.
Yeah, I think it was noticeable that we did send an email out to all partners and we didn't get much response about joining forces.
Yeah.
But now we've got more awareness of who did what over this summer. I think when we go for the National Lottery funding, it's bringing a partnership together. So anyone that delivered activities, I think we need to have them sitting around the table and contributing to the application. So it might be that we draw down money, and the police would then deliver an element of the project, or YMCA. So it's not all the responsibility of the town council. We all work together to deliver.
I think it's the same thing with any project, and it's build it and they will come, so you have to start small and build, seems to see other places.
Yeah, I also have family who went this summer and really enjoyed it. I've watched the video for next summer. I think it's very good. My passion is live music, and if we could try to include maybe a bandstand, maybe a local talent. I'd like to be involved in something if I can help.
Yeah, that'd be
We
great.
have a lot of,
Yeah.
we have a lot of local talent.
Yeah, I think it'd be great to include people, artists, and
I've had a few conversations recently with people around, there's a growing number of people who want to see a live music festival coming back to Crewe. And there's been a bit of talk around sort of the old rail ale, sort of, there's a lot of independent breweries around Crewe, and how that could link into that as well. So hopefully those sorts of conversations can progress and we can support where we can.
I agree with Martin. We lost a great venue when the limelight disappeared. I used to go down there quite a lot. It's amazing how much talent there is that isn't famous, if you like. And I would love to see something like that in Crewe. And if I can be involved along with Martin, as most of you know, I've got a passion for music. And I'd love to see us. I'd love to see a weekend show of live music in Crewe somewhere. I really would.
yeah, obviously that was before my time, but I've heard lots and lots of people talking about that place. And I've got friends who are struggling musicians, and some have had to sadly abandon their dream because there's nowhere to play. So yeah, anything would be great.
When I win the lottery, I'll build something. I don't mean £2.50 either.
Thank you for all that. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Sorry, the town clerk.
Sorry, Chair. From the discussion, I've heard general acceptance with a few technical amendments to the proposed draft budget for next year. That bottom line of that budget fits within the intent of the council to seek to achieve an increase of no greater than 3.5%. So you're asked now to recommend that draft budget for this committee to council via the F&G committee that will take place in advance.
Yeah, I'll move that.
Do we have a seconder? Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you very much. That brings us to item number 7, which is to receive details associated with National Lottery grant that we've received.
Okay, so this is just to go through the expenditure for the National Lottery Community Fund funding, which we received £10,000 for Operation Summer. The breakdown for funding was spend was predefined within the application. So there was £2,600 allocated to the Operation Summer project film, £900 allocated to programming, 1,500 allocated to marketing materials, and Operation Summer community conversations there was £5,000 allocated to. So that's the breakdown. So it's just a consideration sought from the committee tonight is to approve the expenditure as associated with the external funding application.
that. Effectively we're approving funding to be spent in line with what the funding was given to us for. Could I have a proposal and a second, please?
Opposed?
Thank you. Stephanie, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item 8. That's to receive an update on membership for the Light Up the North.
Okay, so there's no report for this, I was just going to briefly give you an update. So Bridgetown Council has been invited to join a 12-month pilot project as part of Light Up the North network. So the Light Up the North network is a national network and includes all the Northern Light Nights. So we've got Leeds, Blackpool, Lancaster, Salford, Middlesbrough, Oldham, Durham, Leicester, Barnsley and Worcester. So we've been invited to be an associate member for 12 months, and that would allow us to have mentoring from some of the more developed Light Nights, where the group is now looking at moving forward, exploring joint evaluation for all the Light Nights, so we can all learn from each other. There's also access to the Light Night app, although you do have to pay for it. So when we went to Durham, the app that they use has been designed through the network, so if we wanted to use that in Crewe, we could pay to have it designed as a Crewe app. And we're also going to explore a joint funding application across all the Light Nights. Being a member of the Light Up the North network will strengthen future Arts Council England funding applications. The cost is £250 for the year, which will come from the Lumen budget. But I think we'll get a lot more value out of it across the year than the £250 we put in. It's just to give you an update really to get your feedback on that. There is a press release due to go out on the 14th of November, which will be a national press release to say that we're a new member of the network, and we'll also do some local media as well around that. But I think it's a positive step forward for Lumen, and I think it's come at the right time, because I think Jill and Joe are right, we do need to have a look at the direction of it moving forward and how we make it more relevant to Crewe and the Crewe audiences.
I think that all sounds really positive. As I mentioned earlier, myself, Tom and Rachel visited the Durham event last year. I'd really encourage members, if you are interested in the light events, to have a look at others. I've been to Worcester as well, myself. It's really interesting to see the different angles that these sorts of events can take, the different artworks that could be installed, the entertainment that is provided. Everyone's got their very own sort of unique identity that makes the most of the architecture in the towns that they're in. So Worcester, for example, has got lots of very narrow cobbled streets, and they make the most of that. They make the most of the railway arches that are there. Durham was absolutely beautiful with the cathedral grounds. So actually we've got the same architecture, we've got municipal buildings. We've got places like the Limelight that are distinctive in Crewe, and actually we can have a think then if we're visiting these sorts of places about how we can make the most of these, to kind of make the most of our assets as well. Yeah, thank you. Has anybody got any questions just around this? No.
I support the idea, but is the membership fee based on the size of the town? Because you mentioned some fairly large cities there.
Yeah, so I think the more established cities, the larger ones, do contribute a lot more. I think because this is a pilot project, it's just a very small fee to begin with, and I think they've drawn down Arts Council funding to be able to spend time mentoring us. So I think that £250 is towards the match for Arts Council.
If we decided that we wanted to go more than the pilot, would it be more expensive each year?
I'm not sure, we'll have to have the conversation. I think potentially it would go on budget, and when I've spoken to the chair of the group, I think our budget is one of the smallest within in the network, but we are a small town in comparison to places like Durham. But I think I can definitely have the conversation about moving forward.
Just wondered whether it'd be a great big
Yeah,
increase.
no, I'll ask the question.
Councillor Stream Francis.
For £250 for a year to find out what it's all about, I propose we go ahead.
Thank you. I will second it for that. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Next item to consider is item number 9, which is to consider the opportunity to join the Without Walls group.
Okay, so Without Walls is another national network, and we put an expression of interest in, just so they knew that we were interested. It's quite competitive, so it's great that they've actually offered us the opportunity to join the network. So Without Walls is an organisation that's a national portfolio organisation. So this offer will depend on the national portfolio announcement. It was due to take place on the 26th of November, but the government cancelled it the night before. So it's now going to take place on the 4th of November, and that's where Arts Council provide a large amount of funding for organisations to move forward with the work. So Without Walls, they work with festival organisers, they work with commissioners, they work with artists to develop new work within the UK, and then they tour it throughout the UK and also internationally. So to be part of the Without the Walls touring partnership would be a member from 2023 to 2026, so a 3-year period. The festivals that included were Operation Summer and Lumen. So basically we pay a £5,000 subscription to the network, but then that gives us £10,000 in subsidies when we book artists and shows. So we don't get the cash, we just get the 50% discount up to £10,000 every time we book a show or an artist. So over the 3-year period, it would be worth £30,000 to the town council, because we'd get the artists for 50% of what we'd normally pay for them. And that subsidy comes from the Arts Council funding through the MPO status.
And the artists and the shows you mentioned now have to be affiliated with the organisation?
And so Without Walls commission, I think it's between 10 and 15 new pieces of work, new shows every year. So at the moment they've got over 70 shows on their books. And the Without Walls shows are by far the best shows that I've seen at festivals. They're really high quality. So it's fantastic because we would have first dibs on booking those shows, especially the new ones as well.
And incorporating it into summer, for instance?
Yeah, so we would be booking programming for Operation Summer anyway, we'd be booking it for Lumen anyway, but being part of this network, we'd get better value because some of the things we bring in through Without the Walls would only be paying 50% of the cost.
Councillor Rhodes.
Can I just say, so we're paying £5,000 a year, is that right? Because on page 21 it says 10,000. So it's programming for up to £10,000 per year.
Yeah, so we will have so our contribution is £5,000, so that is paid for their £5,000 worth of programming. And then because we'll get that programming at such a discount, it basically works out that they've given us £10,000 in subsidies.
Right.
That's £5,000 over the 3 years, not 5,000 a year.
Each year.
Each year.
But for Operation Summer and Lumen, we would spend more on that on programming anyway. So it's what we normally spend on programming. It would just mean that we would spend that through Without the Walls on their 70 shows.
It almost seems to be like buying a discount card. It's
Yeah,
that sort of thing,
basically,
is
yeah.
put a bit of money in and then get discounts on everything else that we want to book.
Yeah, I think for Without Walls and the shows they commission, the new work they commission, it guarantees that them shows will then tour the UK and go to festivals.
I mean, I always did a quick scan of the page before I came, but this gives me no information about whether what they have might be suitable for Crewe. It's all right saying they've got 70 shows, but how do we know that it's what we want, it's appropriate for what we want?
I can get a link to the shows. A lot of the shows they commission are also booked through the Arts Council, Creative People and Places, and they're locations with low arts engagement, so they're aimed at the same audiences that Crewe would have. So the audience agency has audience segmentation. So we know that in Crewe that people don't travel far for arts activity. They like things that are quite mainstream. They like things that are free to participate in. It's good quality art, but it's not high-end art, and it tends to be focused on the family audience. But I can get a link and send it out to everybody to have a look.
Yeah, okay. Well, I've got no objection to buying into it, but as it stands, I don't feel that I've got enough information to actually make an informed decision about it. Because
Is there a deadline to make a decision?
They're waiting for their MPO status announcement, which would be the 4th of November, so this week. But I can get the link sent out to you guys tomorrow if you want to have a look at them. But a lot of the work I've seen at other festivals, and it's the sort of thing I would programme for Crewe audiences, but I can send you some more information.
Town clerk and council string councils.
Would it be valuable to see, a bit more information on the type of shows that are created and then identify the value of them more clearly for any decision about whether these are things you want to see in Crewe? And that could be at the next meeting, because that's what members need to see to help with the decision, and maybe that's something we provide.
I think that would be a good idea. Bear in mind that we've also talked about not binding future council in things. It allows us that time to kind of look at some of the discussion on the strategic event for 23-24. At the same time, it links into what we were talking earlier about Lumen, not necessarily restricting ourselves to sort of pigeonhole it. So actually, if we could have more information about what the exact offer is from Without Walls, that is brought to the January meeting. Councillor Stray Francis.
Thank you. Did I hear you right when you said that? When you said about we're spending £5,000 on Lumen, if we have this £5,000 to this, we won't be paying £5,000 to Lumen, or did I misunderstand you?
No, so we get a discount. So when we look at the programming for both Operation Summer and Lumen, if we go through Without Walls, if we're part of this network,
Yeah.
and we go through Without Walls and book, say we book 5 shows for Operation Summer through it and 5 shows for Lumen, those 10 shows we would get a 50% discount. So we'd get more for our money.
If we booked them without being part, so my understanding is, if we booked these 10 shows and they cost £5,000 each, we'd be spending £50,000 on programming. Because we've spent £5,000 being part of the membership, we then get them for £25,000, so we've spent £30,000 overall.
Right.
Yeah, but the shows Without Walls, they're not that large or expensive. So you're looking at, so when we had Operation Summer, we had the Fabularium, which I think was around just under £1,000 for the 3 shows for that day. So it would be shows that are similar to that. So if it's £1,000, we would just pay 500. which means it will boost our programming offer.
Right, but we'll still be paying for Lumen.
Yeah, so we'll still pay for Lumen, but some of the programming budget, some of the programming would go to Lumen. It would just mean that we would have better quality and more programming around Lumen.
Right.
Which
Excuse me for being thick, but we've got a budget of £60,000 for Lumen. Would that increase?
no, we would still have £60,000 for Lumen.
Right,
But when we paid for things out of the Lumen budget, we would get a certain amount of programming for half price. So,
yeah, no, I understand what you're saying,
yeah,
but perhaps I'm not explaining myself very well, but if we're paying £60,000 to Lumen, or if we've got a budget of £60,000, and we go into this without walls for £5,000, we're not putting £5,000 onto the budget. It's already in that £60,000. Is that right?
yeah,
Makes no difference, does it, to me?
yeah, we just get a certain amount of shows up to £10,000 discounted.
No, I'm pretty sure that.
It-
At first, I'm sorry, at first, the way you was putting it to me,
Yeah,
it sounded like it was gonna be £65,000.
oh no,
But if it's still £60,000 and it's just coming out of that budget, then, oh, well, I'm quite happy.
It saves us money in the long run. Is the simple thing of this to me. We're paying £5,000 to get significant discounts to above the £5,000 we're putting in. We get up to
Yeah.
£10,000 worth of discounts effectively.
Right, yeah,
Yeah, I've got Councillor Rose and Councillor Paddock.
One of the things that we always, when we Lumen, would engage the community. And, you know, we remember the lantern parades and so on. This says nothing about involving the community. It just says about putting shows on. And, you know, part of what there's always been would be that we would engage the community, would look to pass skills on to people within our community. And I can't see anything in this report so far that suggests to me that would happen. And I want a lot more information about how they work with the community if they're coming in. And I want a lot more information about the kind of shows, because I know some of the things I've seen from the Arts Council in the past I've not found particularly, from my perspective, good. And I want some guarantee that what we have will actually meet not the needs, but will challenge the people of Crewe, but will not be something that they think, well, that was a waste of money. So for me, I want to know before I put £5,000 on the table what I'm going to get and how it's going to engage the people of Crewe.
yeah, I can send the links out. I think with both Operation Summer and Lumen, I think there's different strands to the event. So I think you are right. I do want to see Lumen moving forward be more community focused, and I think it's around eventually bringing back the parade and having those 6 months of making workshops across Crewe that feed into Lumen. But then I also think there's opportunity also to have some performance and shows included in that as well. So I think it's finding the right balance. But my vision for Lumen moving forward would be that it's more community focused and it's more relevant to Crewe and it tells the Crewe story rather than just continue bringing in work. But I think it's that balance of a mixture of all those strands.
Just going back to the things that we saw in Durham last year, and an example of good practice was that there was a community art installation where different charities and community groups had each created their own building to light up, and effectively it was a replica, so you'd actually have the market hall miniaturised and then lit up from the inside, made by people that used the market hall. You'd have Jubilee House, you'd have St Barnabas Centre, you'd have all these different places, and so there's ways of doing that, and again it's finding that balance between live artistic performances, and then getting the community actually involved in that, because we sort of co-producing that with you. I've got Councillor Vaddis.
Thank you, Chair. As I see it, we'll be getting more for our money. We'll be putting the 5,000, but we'll be getting more for our money. I understand what Councillor Rhodes says, but I'm thinking that if we're involving the Operation Summer, Creative Crew and people like that, and I really like to involve Men in Sheds, St Barney's, of course, and all the local groups, get them involved. But I think we do need reassurances that we can do this. Some of these things that we put, you mentioned festivals, you know, but it's not local people that are going to be in, we're going to bring in people in. But would it encourage the young people to perhaps take up a musical career if they see more of it in the town?
I think that's why I said challenge, because, you know, people need to see things that they're not used to seeing, but to give them aspirations, but not to the extent that they just don't understand why we spend money on it.
Tom Clark.
Can I suggest then that officers bring back a more detailed report with when announced the portfolio of what's on offer from this opportunity, and how that would relate into crew event plans and settings, how it would have value, and how it might relate to the community or not, as the case may be, and see if it's appropriate then for members to consider got information.
I think that's good. What I'd like to see, if there's a further report being got back in, is practical working examples and something visual as well. I think that helps when we're making decisions on artistic performances, actually having a picture of that kind of thing, of what we're talking about, is quite important as well. I'm certainly happy to propose that as a second and take a vote.
To be fair, genuinely propose is just
Okay,
send us off on our way and we'll come back with a
yeah, we can do that then. Yeah, that's. The next item on the agenda is to receive management data associated with social media engagement.
Okay, so Suzanne's passed on the September social media overview. So the highlights, Facebook, we had 91 new followers, taking us to 4,249 in total. We had a reach of nearly 38,000 across September. We had 1,721 likes and reactions, which was a 49% increase on the month before. 288 comments, which was an increase on August of 77%. 265 link clicks, mainly to our website, and 3,441 page views, which was a 13% increase. Twitter, we had 3 new followers, and that takes us to 5,098 profile visits, an increase of 42% in August. Instagram, Suzanne set up over August. We've had 17 new page followers in September, that's 354 in total. 101 likes and reactions, which was an increase of 44% on August, and 38 profile visits, but that was a decrease of 24% on August. The three most engaging posts across social media in September was the Crew Makers Market on the 3rd of September, followed by the announcement of the Queen's death, and then the Christmas light switch on save the date. So I think that explains why some of the Facebook is so high.
Is there any comments or questions regarding social media, Councillor Rhodes?
I just think it's really good that we've got some social media presence, and because for too long we didn't have a social media presence, and you know it is good that it's been managed correctly.
Yeah. Again, I'd just like to pass on thanks to Suzanne for doing such a splendid job with it. I think again, sort of digital engagement is the way forward. We can't forget people who aren't online, of course, but it's it's a fantastic way to engage with people, to spread messages, to keep them informed about what's going on in the town and all the work that we're doing. So I think it's really good to see that particularly the Facebook page is doing so well. Councillor Edwards.
I don't know if the information is available this evening, but the comments are what in nature, positive, negative, constructive?
I think mainly positive. We have a few regulars that would give us negative feedback. But what we're finding is the regulars that give us the negative feedback, we don't even have to respond. We find that other Facebook users jump on and correct them. So I think the messages are getting.
Yeah, I have noticed. I follow most town and parish councils in Cheshire, certainly Cheshire East on Facebook. Compared to other councils, we do very well with positive comments, and it's nice to see. Town Clerk.
If I can give you some reassurance from other experiences, I would suggest that disproportionately positive responses to social media posts from a council are exceptionally unusual, and that is representative of all the experience. You will always get people who have the right to express a view of challenge, and that's quite right and proper, and we should be challenged by it, and it may galvanise us to a better judgment in the future. But it isn't a negative experience working with the social media of this council. So it's been a positive investment in that officer, and they've delivered some great results.
There's always keyboard cowboys out there, isn't it?
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, I know you don't.
And is there a way for users or visitors to is there a forum or anything like that for them to perhaps provide suggestions, ideas?
No, they can leave it online. We don't have the messaging system anymore, do we?
Right, so there are many different ways of contacting us. We still get people knocking on the door of a more traditional nature, and we will let them in every single time and talk to them and see if we can help them out. So in terms of accessibility, we are visible and we're still a human interaction. We answer the phone, and that allows that. In terms of the forum aspect of this, the social media will inform services. It has already informed a range of services. It identifies problems and the range can respond accordingly. It identifies opportunities. So people will suggest things. I'm absolutely certain it's informed officers and what they've reported back to committees in the past. And it definitely gives a hint at residents' priorities and concerns and likes as well. So it acts as its own forum. There is no proactive consultative process in that, although I would expect under a new administration that refreshing point we'll see after a local election, we will process a lot more engagement and direct consultation to ensure any refresher in corporate strategy is still in line with what was previously perceived. So it is a two-way conversation. We do get messages and we do respond to them. We do read everything and we do take ear of it, and if it's of any way constructive, even if it's negatively constructive, we will push it forward. So yes, it is of a sort of form. It is not a formal consultative tool.
No.
Some of the suggestions are physically impossible.
Yes, thank you for entering those, Councillor.
Keep them on the toes.
Apart from that is just to note the proposed date of the next meeting, which is Tuesday the 10th of January at 6 PM. Can I also just remind members as well, we have the Creative Champions training session. You don't have to come by any means, but it's an open opportunity to get more involved in some of the volunteering. That's Tuesday.
15th of November.
5 till 7, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, please feel free to come along, and obviously the Christmas lights switch on. Yeah, thank you very much for attending.